Hello and welcome to this Splunk full course by Mindmajix. Your servers, your firewalls, and your applications generate millions of data every single minute. Somewhere in that noise is a hacker trying to break it, or a server about to crash. How do you find that needle in the haystack? You use Splunk. It is most widely used platform for log analysis, real-time monitoring, security analytics, and operational intelligence. In this course, we will take you from the Splunk fundamentals to advanced topics including data onboarding, search processing language, dashboard creations, alerts, security use cases, and integration with DevOps and SIEM workflows. Organizations like Wipro, TCS, JP Morgan, and Deloitte rely on Splunk to power their IT operations and cybersecurity efforts. According to the Naukri and LinkedIn, roles such as Splunk administrators, security analysts, and SIEM specialists earn between 6 to 22 lakh rupees per annum in India, depending on experience and specializations. And if you want to learn paid Splunk course with certification, then check out our course, where we will cover latest industry curriculum, hands-on projects, labs, mock interviews, and more. Before moving ahead, I want you guys to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss any tutorials and courses from us. So let's get started with our Splunk full course.
Yeah, if you see the Splunk overview, we are having different options from where we can get the data into Splunk. So it can be from DB servers, custom applications, network, security, servers, mobile devices, web services. So there are different sources from which we are going to get the data into Splunk. For example, as I discussed in the earlier class, if I want to get the data from your laptop, I can install some software on your laptop that will be universal forwarder software. I'll also show you where that software is actually available. And if your server is having some database tables, or if it is related to some DB server, then we can also get the data to that server to Splunk. So there are different options or different ways to get the data into Splunk. So here, if you are seeing, there are DB servers, custom applications. So custom applications is the one which we are going to create the applications. Going future, we are going to see how we are going to create application and all. And it can be through networks and all. So whatever we are seeing here, the different sources, it is nothing but input. Here on the right side, if you see, there are different stages in Splunk which we need to know. So input, parsing, indexing, and searching. So input is the first stage where we are going to get the data into Splunk. Here in this input stage, we are going to define inputs.configuration file. And coming to the next stage, parsing. Parsing is nothing but the way you want to extract the data in Splunk. So for extracting the data in Splunk and for getting the data in correct time zone, we are going to write props.configuration file in the next step. So these are all different configuration files which we are going to see. And next step is nothing but indexing. So how you are searching for the data? By using some index. So in that stage we are going to use indexes.configuration file. And when coming to the next step, it is nothing but searching. Users usually search, and administrators usually they have all the privileges. They can create different configuration files, they can search for the data, and they can give the users some privileges to search for the data. So here, Splunk overview, it is basically explaining it accepts any data as input. It will parses the inputs into events, stores events into indexes, searches and reports, and authenticates users. So we are going to give permissions only to specific users for specific application data. For example, we are having 10 applications in Splunk. So for 10 applications, there will be 10 different users or 10 different groups to access those data. So for first application, it is not something like each and every user has to see that data. So we can give some privileges. So you can limit the privileges so that only first application data will be applicable, or it can be seen only by the first group team members. So whoever the application owners or whoever the application team members are present, only they can see the data. So we can also restrict the permissions. So we are also going to see how we are going to restrict the permissions and all. So for as of now, in this Splunk overview, you just remember input, parsing, and indexing, searching. These are the four stages which we are having in Splunk, the basic stages. And here if we see, Splunk deployment standalone. So we are having some single server. Single server, definitely in each and every organization, a single server will be there, which is used for testing or for POC, proof of concept, for testing some of the configuration files or for personal use and for learning. So single server has to be present. And recommendation here, Splunk is recommending that you should have at least one test or development setup at your site. So at your site you should have at least one test server. In the deployment basic thing, here you are seeing whatever we have seen in the first slide: input, parsing, indexing and searching. Here one more stage has occurred, which is nothing but forwarder management. Forwarder management, here the forwarders are being controlled. Forwarder is nothing but from where you are actually getting the data into Splunk. So Splunk server, similar to server in standalone configuration, manage deployment of forwarder configuration. Forwarders are nothing but forwarders collect the data and send it to Splunk servers. So we are going to see how we are going to install a forwarder and how we are going to get the data in Splunk and all. Now here if we see, we are having what softwares we actually need to install. Splunk Enterprise software. So Splunk Enterprise software is the one which we are going to install in our Splunk servers. For example, people will assume that there are different Splunk components like indexer, search head, deployment server, license master, heavy forwarder, cluster master, search head cluster, so on. So there are different Splunk components, and what people will think that there has to be different softwares that has to be installed on each and every server. But the assumption is wrong. There will be only single Splunk enterprise software which will be installed on each and every server. So when this single Splunk enterprise software is installed based upon the configuration changes. For example, indexer will be having some different configurations. Search head will be having some other configurations. So software is same, but the only difference is configuration changes. So based upon the configuration changes, we will name the server as either indexer or search head or deployment server based upon our requirement. Now here if we see, we are having universal forwarder. So universal forwarder is the one from where we are going to collect the data. So it is also called deployment client. So deployment, why it is called deployment client? Because it always reports to deployment server. So universal forwarder always reports to deployment server. So that is the reason this universal forwarder is called deployment client. And in the large organizations where there are hundreds of forwarders, so in that case we are going to use deployment servers. So we'll learn that in the next slides. And the reference servers. Reference servers, so here it is showing OS. So Linux or Windows, it has to be 64-bit distribution for indexer and search head. When compared to these two, indexer should have more memory usage. Indexer will be having more memory usage, or it should be having more CPU cores, because indexer stores the data. So how much data it is going to store, it depends upon the user requirement or application requirement. Usually more data will be storing more than 1 GB 2 GB every day. So that is the reason definitely memory and CPU disk, everything will be higher when compared to search head. And today we are going to see the best practices is not to install Splunk on root. So we have created Splunk user and group, and we are giving permissions to our Splunk folder, but we should never use root on Nix. Nix is nothing but Linux. And also administrator on Windows, you should always create an account that is used to run Splunk. So let me open this putty, and if we see here, this is my Splunk user. So I have moved from root to Splunk. So I have given this sudo su-splunk. So from root to Splunk I have moved, and I have went into opt Splunk, where I have seen the folders, and in the in the bin directory I have seen the status, which we have seen in the last class. So This is inactive because I have opened this very long back. Now, if you start this, you need to restart the session again. So now, as of now, it is not required. Now, let's continue to our discussion. Yeah. So in Linux or Windows, whatever you are adding, for example, you are adding some extra scripts or you are adding some folders or any configuration files, you should make sure Splunk is having that permissions. Splunk user which we have created, that should be having permissions to the folders whatever we are adding. So that will be annoying and clear in coming classes. And best practices, use the time synchronization services, and correct event timestamp is essential for Splunk. So let me open Splunk and show you what is this correct timestamp and correct event stamping. Now I have logged into my Windows machine, Windows Splunk machine. If you see here, 4:15 is my Splunk time and this is my event time. 15 April 2021 and 11:07. So whatever the time, event time and whatever the indexing time we are seeing here, both should get matched. Why this both should get matched? For example, if I'm having this event timestamp as some 13, I'm having 13 here and I'm having 15 here. Whatever it is indexing, today it got indexed and it is showing 13 for, let's suppose assume it is 13th data. So if it is 13, when I am searching for last 24 hours, last 24 hours means I should get only 15th and 14th data, last 24 hours. But when I see here, I'll be seeing 13th data, which is not accurate. So for users who are searching for last 24 hours, it should be accurate. It should show only last 24 hours data. If it is 13 and here if it is 15, that is of no use. So they are using 13th data also. So you have to make sure these both are matching. So in order to see these both are matching, we should make sure we are writing proper configurations for whatever the data we are trying to ingest in Splunk. So that is the thing which you'll need to follow, and that will be knowing in next classes where we are going to see about configurations. And here these are the important ports. So for Splunk D it is 8089. So whatever the port, whatever the Splunk service is running, it is using 8089 port. And for web port it is 8000. So for web, so whenever we are trying to launch any web URL of Splunk, we should definitely give 8000 port. Without this 8000 port, our Splunk service will not open. Web app server proxy, it is 8065. This is not so important. KV store, key value store. So whatever the keys and values we are storing in Splunk, it uses 8191. And the other S2S, any network or HTTP event, index replication port, search replication port, these are optional. So whatever the port you want, you can use it. But for indexer, Splunk indexes and all, we use 9997 port as default. But if you want other ports to be used, you can use it. But you have to make sure that port is not being used by any other services on our Splunk server. So this is the Linux setting recommendation. So before installing Splunk on Linux server, you have to follow these parameters. So these parameters has to be increased. So why it has to be increased? Because to allow large number of buckets, forwarders and users. So to handle large number of users or to handle large amount of data or forwarders, you need to increase these parameters. Core file size, it should be unlimited. Open files, it should be 65536. And maximum user process, it should be 258048. So by default, whatever we are getting, that has to be modified to these values according to our number of users, forwarders or buckets which we are going to use. And this is an installation where we have already seen in the last class. So from www.splunk.com we have downloaded .tar file and .msi installer for Windows. And if you want, you can follow these instructions also. And after installation, if you see for Windows, my Splunk service automatically restarted. I did not restart anything specifically, but for Windows it is important to start the service manually. So we need to start it by giving ./splunk start restart or to check the status. but for Windows it is not required. And if you see run Splunk at boot, what is this run Splunk at boot? Enable boot start user. So it is asking us to enable boot start user. What is this enable boot start user? For example, okay, let me restart this session again. For example, I want to check the status of Splunk. So for checking the status, I'll always go into sudo -splunk. So I should give space here. Now if you see here, I'll type opt splunk and bin folder. I'll go. Now I'll try to check the status of Splunk. Now you see my Splunk D is running. I'll close this. Now I'll stop the Splunk dot slash Splunk stop. So what I'm doing, I am trying to shut down. Fail to stop Splunk service. The name was not provided. So now I'll try to check the status. Okay, it is not allowing me to stop it. Okay, it did not allow me to stop it because the reason is I have installed my Splunk from Amazon Marketplace directly. So if you don't want to add anything, or if you don't want to add the Splunk software directly, so what you can do means you can launch the instance. So go into Marketplace and try to click on this Splunk's Enterprise and install Splunk. Continue. If you go on click next as followed in our next previous class, you can install Splunk Enterprise from the Amazon Marketplace directly. So in this case, you no need to install the Splunk files directly. But here it is not allowing with the Splunk user. So Splunk user, it did not give each and every permissions to start, stop or restart the Splunk services. So that is the reason it is saying that failed to stop Splunk D service. But when I went into root and when I tried to stop the Splunk service, it stopped it immediately. But it will not happen like this when you are trying to add the file and extracting the file separately in a Splunk server. Now you see my Splunk D is not running. Now what I'll try to do means I'll try to close it. So I am trying to exit this session. So I have closed the session. Now I'll go into EC2. Now one, it is already running, the one which I have used just now. I'll copy it and I'll try to open the session again. So give the key always. I have given the key. Now I'll go into EC2 user. Now I'll try to go into root. So sudo -i. Now what I'll try to do means I'll try to check the status of Splunk. Now it is still showing Splunk D is not running. So if I close it, my Splunk service has to be restarted. So it has to start automatically, but it is not starting. My Splunk status is, it is still showing Splunk D is not running. But if you enable boot start, then what it is happening means, even though when you are trying to close this Linux server, it will start the service or it will restart the service from the backend of Splunk. So you have to make sure you are enabling the boot start. So that is the reason where we are going to enable this boot start whenever you are trying to close or whenever you are trying to start the server. Instead of Splunk service, whenever you are trying to start the server itself, it is going to restart your Splunk as well. Here the directory structure, if you see, Splunk underscore home is nothing but opt Splunk directory, where you are seeing bin. In the bin you are always trying to run the executables /Splunk start, restart, or for checking the status, or to run any shell scripts or anything. Everything has to go in bin directory only. In the etc directory, you'll always have licenses. So how much license you are going to add to this specific server, or the configuration files, or the applications. You are having different users or system related configurations. Everything is present in etc directory, and in var directory you are going to have indexes, and log files also you are going to have in this var directory. So you should make sure after installing the Splunk you have to go to each and every folder, and you have to verify the executables, licenses, configurations, and indexes and all. Everything has to be verified once you install Splunk. That is a good practice. And Splunk D, it runs on 8089 port. So whatever the port we are using is 8089, and if 8089 is not working or it is getting stopped, you cannot view the Splunk web. And whatever whatever we are having applications in Splunk, for example scripted inputs, searches, alerts, kv store, whatever the process or indexes which is accessing the data, incoming data, whatever it is present, everything will be coming under as a child process in 8089. So real time process, it will be showing as a help us in our Splunk D itself. For web it is 8000. Without this 8000 you cannot view Splunk web, and the default login is admin and change me. For example, let me open this, and you see, I'll try to start the Splunk service again. You should be very much aware how to start, stop, and restart the Splunk services. Now you see, I have verified the status, it is not running. So I'll start the service. So you should also know when to start, when to restart the services. So it got started. Now I'll try to check the status. Now, if you see, this is the main PID, process ID, and if you see, these are the Splunk helpers. So whatever we are getting in the back end. So for example, some internal logs are running, or if suppose some alerts or whatever the scripted inputs are present, those are running in the back end by default. So for that the processes are getting created. If there are more scripted inputs or more processes or more searches are running, then you'll see more and more PIDs here. Splunk server settings. So you can have a look on this, but I'll show it in server directly. So this is my Windows Splunk server. Go into settings. So it is, I would suggest go into each and every setting and see what is actually happening. So go into server controls. Now I want to restart my Splunk server. So in order to restart my Splunk server or service, what I'll do, I'll go into this server controls, and I can restart my Splunk service from here also. From the backend also, you can restart, or from UI also you can restart. So if there are any configurations, or if you are adding some application from UI itself, so definitely my the Splunk will be asking to restart my Splunk service. So in that case you can go into the server controls and restart my Splunk service. Now go into server settings. So what is present in server settings? Go into general settings. So it will be having the general settings, Splunk server name. So whenever you are trying to verify any internal logs, or if you are trying to add any data, as this is a single standalone server we are using for testing purpose or for POCs and all. So whenever you are trying to see the host name, it always show this Splunk server name. So if you want to modify it, you don't want this, my laptop name it is showing as of now, so you don't want this one, so you want to change it. So at that time also you can change the Splunk server name. Now it is running on web port 8000. It is showing app server ports 8065, and run Splunk web. Yes, if you disable it, you cannot able to view Splunk web. SSL no. So when you click on it, it will show HTTP only. If you want it to be secure, you can click S, session timeout. So after 1 hour, it is going to expire automatically. Default host name. If you want to change it, you can change it. Free disk space. So 5000 by default Splunk has provided. 8191 is my KV store, key value store. So this is what here it is explaining us. So you can have a look on it. So whatever I have explained, the everything has provided here. If you want to restart, you can restart it. And messages, if you see Here the messages, whenever if there is a need to restart the Splunk server, it will automatically pop up to restart. Or if there are any error messages or anything that has to be taken care, that will also get displayed in these messages. And if you see, these are the basic syntax which we need to know. For example, license accept. So in last class I have directly clicked okay, 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 but instead of accepting the license in that way, you can directly write Splunk start hyphen hyphen accept hyphen license directly. It will automatically accept the license without any prompt. Always remember, for Linux you have to use dot slash Splunk, and for Windows you can directly use Splunk start, Splunk status, or Splunk show, Splunk deep port. So whatever you want to check, you can see it here. For example, Splunk help. Splunk help, it will display a usage summary. Splunk help object. So if you want to specify any object, it will give the details about that object. Splunk start, stop, restart, it will manage the Splunk processes, and it will, as I discussed, it will accept the license without any prompt. And the status, you can display the Splunk status automatically, and it will show the Splunk D which is listening on our Splunk server. Web port server name it will show, default host name also it will show. So we are having different commands which can be seen. And for lab 1 exercise, you have to log into Splunk web, and you try to change your Splunk server, check the status of Splunk. So how to check the status and all? Restart Splunk. So log into Splunk web. You directly log in by giving username and password. So let me show you again. So log into Splunk web by giving 8000 port. You have to log in. That is the main important thing which you'll need to follow to log into Splunk. And after logging to Splunk, go into settings, server settings, where you can able to change the server name. If you want to change the server name, change it here. Default host name also you change it here. So in that way you can able to change the Splunk server name. Now you'll need to check the status. Check the status, go into CMD for Windows, and go into program files where your Splunk was installed. My Splunk was installed on CD C program files Splunk. So I'm going into bin directory. I'm going to check the status of Splunk. So I have given directly Splunk status. To restart, I'll give Splunk restart. So it gets restarted automatically. And this is for Windows. And for Linux, what I'm trying to do, I went into bin directory. I'll write dot slash Splunk. So this got inactivated again. I'll try to reset the terminal, and I'll try to, it is taking some time. Now I will try to restart the session. EC2 user. Now go into root directory and type opt splunk cd bin, and whenever you are trying to check the status, dot slash splunk status. Now you see it is showing me the status. And if you want to restart, you can restart Splunk dot slash Splunk. Always use dot slash for Linux, and for CMD or for Windows you should directly use Splunk. Now you see my server got restarted for Windows. That is the reason it is showing again me to login. This is what happening here. We are going to see Splunk apps and app management in Splunk. So what is an app, and how you are going to manage app, and from where you are going to download it, and what are custom applications, and how do you change the permissions in app management, and what is the basic difference between Splunk apps and add-ons. So where do you actually install some application in Splunk instance, and we are having different Splunk instances, as you all know. So heavy forwarders, deployment server, search head, indexer, and cluster master and all such Splunk instances we are having. So where actually you are going to install an application and manage app accessibility and permissions. So to whom you are trying to give permissions and how do you access each and every application in Splunk. These are the things we are going to see here in this today's agenda. Now, what is an app? So app is nothing but it is independent collection of all the configuration files. So all the configuration files means whatever the configuration files are required for that specific application, so that all the configuration files will be present. So defining inputs, indexes, source types, field extractions, transformations, and providing different event types, tags, reports, dashboards, and other different knowledge objects. All the things are present in this application. So it also have some scripts, web assets, etc. And most applications are focused on specific type of data from vendor. So how the data is coming and how do we actually handle that data, operating system or industry specific business need, and based upon our business need we are having different applications in a Splunk base. You can go to that and you can view. I'll show how to open Splunk base and also see the default applications. And also, what is custom application? Custom application is the one which we are going to create. So we are going to create some application. So application is nothing but we are going to create some folder in opt Splunk etc apps, and in that folder we are going to create local folder, and in that local folder we are going to add the configuration files. So whatever the configuration files we are creating, that is nothing but custom application. For example, here in this application we are seeing many configuration files on the left side. So, and if I want to modify any of the configuration file, so I can do it to an existing application. That is not an issue. Even though when you are trying to download it from Splunk base, you can modify it in the local folder. And Splunk apps may be installed on any Splunk instance. So here it is saying it can be installed on any Splunk instance, and it also includes number of default applications. Splunk also includes. So for example, when you have installed Splunk on your environment now, so you have already installed Splunk on your application, Splunk on your Windows machine. So when you have installed Splunk on your Windows machine, you will see the applications by default. So you have not added any application, but Splunk is providing some default applications. So you can verify that applications here in this application. Here you can see the settings bar. So the gear symbol you can see, you can click on it. So here you are seeing the default applications. So these are the default applications which are coming by default in Splunk. And these default applications will be having the configuration files. So that configuration files also you can see it in the backend. From the backend you can see those configuration files. Now this is what we have seen. Click on that symbol in the home manage apps. We are having the symbol. Apps can be visible or hidden. So you can either make it visible or you can hide the specific application. So several applications are installed by default and that are hidden or disabled. And some of the applications, if the applications are not in use, you can disable them. Internal applications used by Splunk should not be modified. So whatever the applications we are using, for example, we are using search and reporting application. So in the search and reporting application, we are going and searching for the data. So for such applications, you should not modify anything. So if you see here, this is search and reporting application. Search and reporting, the name and folder name is search application, and such applications you should not modify. So even if you want to modify, you can add it in local folder. So that is what Splunk is trying to tell us. And some apps are installed in Splunk etc apps. So whatever the applications you are seeing, everything is present in opt Splunk etc apps in the Linux. And what is the exact folder of Windows application folder? So it is C program files etc app. We have installed Splunk in our program files. So that is the reason we are getting C program files, Splunk, etc apps. So these are the default applications. Now what I'll try to do means I'll show how to install the application in Windows, and I'll show, for example, browse more apps. For example, you want to install an application from UI itself. So in that case, you can browse for application, and here if you see the applications you can view, whatever the Splunk default applications are present in Splunk base, each and everything you can view it. For example, I'll go and search for Splunk Windows. Now you see Splunk add-on for Microsoft Windows. Here we are also having Splunk app for Windows infrastructure. We are having different applications. Different applications can be viewed here, and based upon my search, I have searched for Windows and it is showing me Windows related applications. Now what I'll try to do means I'll try to install this Splunk add-on for Microsoft Windows. You can install it, and you have to give your username and password. So whatever the username and password is present for Splunk.com, when you are trying to log into your Splunk.com, whatever the username and password is present, the same username and password can be given here. So now I have read terms and conditions, login and install. Now what it is doing, it is downloading and it is trying to install the application add-on in our Splunk. Now the add-on was successfully installed. It is showing Splunk add-on for Windows was successfully installed. Now I am going into this application settings and I'll try to verify my application was installed or not. If you see Splunk add-on for Microsoft Windows, it is nothing but TA, technology add-on. So you can see the application was installed and permissions is global, and the application is in enabled state. So if you don't want to use this application, you can simply disable it. Now click on this edit properties. Now let us see what is present in this edit properties. Now if you see visible, no. So what is this visible? If you click on this apps, it is not showing anything. But when I try to click on yes here, now update checking. So whenever you are having this application, now let me see what is this version. Now go back and let us see what is the version of this application. So Splunk add-on for Windows, Microsoft Windows, it is showing 8.1.2. Now the main thing which you have to keep in mind is Splunk add-on for Microsoft Windows, it is 8.1.2. I have installed browse more apps and I have installed the application directly. Now you have to make sure. Now for example, Splunk add-on for Microsoft Windows in Splunk base. So the first link which I got is from Splunk base only. Now click on this. Now if you click on this, you can also download it from here. Now it is showing 8.1.2, which is the latest version which we have already installed here. So this is the 8.1.2. So before installing any application, you have to search for that specific application or the keyword. You'll get all the applications or add-ons related to that specific keyword. Now it is showing 8.1.2. The version is 8.1. You have to make sure whether that is compatible with our Splunk version or not. Now my Splunk version is 8 version, so that is the reason I have installed 8.1.2. Yeah, it is compatible. Now you see, let me go into 5 version. Now this 5 version is compatible only with 7.3 and 7.2. If this 5 version, if you install on 8 version, it is not compatible and it is not going to give us the results which we are expected. So you have to make sure the version whatever you are installing, it is compatible with our Splunk versions. So this is how you need to verify before you are going to install any application. Now you see, in the apps, if you click on these apps, I cannot see it because my application is not visible. Now what I'll try to make this application visible. So click on this edit properties, and if you click on this visible, yes, and now update checking. What is this update checking? Update checking is nothing but if you are getting the new version in future. So 8.1.2 is the latest version already. Now if you are getting the new version, you will see the latest version update in the application itself, where it will actually show. So here it is showing 8.1.2. Now if you are having the newer version, it will show under this update 8.1.5 new version available, like that it will show. So if you are seeing the new version, you can click on that update link directly and it will install the newer version directly. Now here, now you have to decide whether you want those updates or not. Yes, I have clicked on yes. Going in future, if I am getting any newer version, then definitely I can see those versions. Now I'll save it. Now I have saved. And let me also show, click on edit properties, and here if you see upload asset, if you want to add any file or any configuration file to this specific application also, you can add it from here. Now as of now I don't want to add anything. Now you see Splunk add-on for Microsoft Windows, because I made the application visible. That is the reason I can view this application here. If I want this application to be hidden, then in that case you can simply click on visible no. Now see this permissions, global permissions. Now it is showing everyone can read this application and only admins have the privileges to write or modify this application. So if you don't want this admin also to view or to modify this application, then you can save it directly. But basically admins are having all the permissions. Admins can modify any configuration file, or they can add or remove any configuration file. So in that case it is useful for administrators to write this application. Now it is showing global application. If you see in the previous page, it is showing global application. I don't want that application to be global. I want that application to be app specific. In that case, you can click on this, only this application, it will show it in app. Let me save it. Now you see it is showing only app specific. Now whoever having access to this specific app can only view it. No one can view it, or whatever the configurations are present for this specific app, that can be used for within this application. No other application can use the configurations used for this specific Microsoft add-on. So basically we have to keep this global, because whatever the configuration files are present, that can be used by other applications, or it can be used by uh, any dashboard or whatever the report or researches, whatever we are writing, those can be, if you want to use those configurations to be used by some other applications, then you have to definitely make it as global. So this is how you are going to install the application. Browse more apps you have installed. Now you are having install app from file. You can also install the specific application from file. Now for example, I'll go into this and I'll try to install DB Connect app. For example, I'm having DB Connect app. This is one of the application where you can write the queries and get the data into Splunk. For example, I want this application to be installed. Now click on this application. Now you have to make sure the compatibility version. Now Splunk version is 8 and the latest version is 3.5.1. Yeah, now I'll try to download this application. Okay, now you see this is getting downloaded. Now if you see, I have downloaded some application and I'll try to install it. Now click on this settings and install app from file. Now you can add the file. So in the downloads, you are already having whatever the application you have downloaded. Upgrade app, the same thing. Whenever we are having this application upgraded to newer version, then at that time you can see it. Now I am trying to install this application. I have downloaded it and now I am trying to install this application. Now I have installed the application. Now what it is asking, restart required. So for this application it is asking to restart. Now I am restarting now. So for most of the applications, whenever you are trying to install the applications, you make sure you are restarting your Splunk service. So if you install this Splunk service only, we can able to see the results. Whatever the results we are expecting, we can see it. Otherwise the configurations will not reflect to our Splunk. Now my Splunk is getting restarted. Now, if you see, I'll log in. Now I'll click on this app. Now Splunk DB Connect. So it is visible by default. Now, so my Splunk DB Connect app was installed successfully. So you can view that. Now you can also verify for version. So Splunk DB Connect app is here. It is, the folder name is Splunk app DB Connect, and it is showing the version 3.5.1, and it is showing yes. Yeah, this is how you are going to install the application. And the third way, now how to install the application. So you have worked on browse more apps, install app from file. Now what is the third way? You can create the application. Otherwise, wherever the Splunk was installed, go into C, program files, and go into Splunk, and where where do you actually install the application? So you'll go into C, program files, Splunk etc apps. You can download the application from the Splunk base, and whenever you are downloading, it will be in tgz. Extract that file and add the file in etc apps directly. You can add that specific application here, and whatever the applications we have added, it is showing here, Splunk ta windows. So this is one of the application we have added it, and other application is Splunk app db connect. So you can view the applications in Splunk etc apps. So these are the two applications which we have added. And if you want, you can extract the files and you can download the app from Splunk base, and you can add the file here, and make sure you are restarting your Splunk service. I have did everything through UI. Try to do it from backend. Now these are the things we have verified. If you want to add more apps, you can add it, and these are the permissions who can modify, or you can who can use this specific applications. If you don't want this application, you can disable it, and for some of the applications there is no option to disable. So these are the default applications which are coming in Splunk. So you cannot disable such applications, only we are having the enable option. And you can also delete the application. If you don't want, you can remove the entire folder from the backend, and you can remove it. Otherwise, from UI, sometimes you'll not able to find the delete option. So in that case, definitely you have to remove the application from backend. And installing the app from Splunk base. So click on the apps, browse more apps. This is the thing which we have verified just now. Search and browse to find that specific application. And here in the Splunk base, most of the applications are free, but some of the applications are not free. Those are premium applications. So when they are not free, you should definitely contact the Splunk support person or Splunk sales. So in the splunk.com itself, you are having some contacts to contact a Splunk salesperson that will be handled by your organization or architect. Now here, most of the applications are free and some of the applications are not free. And whatever the splunk.com credentials you are using, the same credentials you are going to use for Splunk base also. And some apps may require restart. So as I have shown, my Windows application did not ask me for restart, but my DB Connect app asked me to restart the Splunk service. So this is how you are going to work on the applications. And other thing, let me show how the application, how the premium applications will be. Now, for example, you are having Splunk Enterprise application. So this is one of the security application. So security application PCI is one also one of the security application. You can click on it, and if you see there, we don't have any option to download this application. It is only asking to contact sales. You can contact them or you can drop an email. So this is how the premium applications look like, and the applications which we cannot get it for free download, definitely you should contact the salesperson. So installing the app. So whenever you are downloading, the file may be .tar, .gz, .tgz, .zip or .spl. You have to extract this file and you have to add it when you are trying to install it from backend. So basically whatever you are trying to get it from Splunk base, those will be like this. And install the application. So from Splunk base, you can install the file. So that is what I have shown you. And Splunk install app. So using CLI also, you can run this command, try to run this command and try to install the application. And to extract or to add the application in etc apps, go into this etc apps and try to extract. You try to extract the application, otherwise you can download it and add it from UI directly. Some apps may require restart. So, as discussed, some applications will definitely require restart. And universal forwarder. So, universal forwarder is a forwarder where we are trying to download the software from Splunk.com and adding in the server. So, universal forwarder, it is responsible for forwarding the data. So that we are going to see about universal forwarders in coming modules. But now, if you see, it does not have any web interface. Web interface is not available, but still they can benefit from an application. So, whatever the applications and configuration files are present, still those can be benefited. Add-on is nothing but it is a subset of an application. So, Microsoft add-on, so Microsoft Windows add-on I have installed, and that is nothing but it is one of the add-on. So, some of the add-ons will not have GUI. GUI is nothing but reports or dashboards, it will not have. But for applications, you can see reports and dashboards. To install an add-on or an application on forwarder, you have to run the CLI command. Run the CLI command described earlier, deploy it using deployment server. So deployment server, about deployment server also, you are going to see it in coming lessons. Now deleting the application. Adding the application and deleting the application is quite easy in Splunk. You can remove it. You can remove it or remove the folder directly. And you are also having some commands to remove. We are having Splunk remove app application folder. So you can use this command and you can remove the application. And when you delete an application, all its configurations and the scripts are going to be deleted. So everything will be deleted and except C users private app artifacts remain untouched. So whatever the user applications we have created and it is in private, the artifacts will not get uh, removed. And restart the Splunk service. After removing the application, you have to make sure you are restarting your Splunk service. It can be reinstalled later. So if you don't want as of now, you can also reinstall the application later. Alternatively, you can disable, or if you don't want to remove the application, you can disable it or you can move to the backup location. Now about the permissions. The permissions I have shown, users with read permissions can use or can see the application. Users with write permissions, text or configuration files, everything you can see or remove. Whatever the functionality you want to do according to your requirement, you can do it. By default, users role does not have the write permission. Yeah, definitely no one is going to have the write permissions except admin. And let me show you. Now we have installed some application. We have installed Splunk TA Windows. So this is Microsoft Windows application which we have installed. So it is showing in different folder name. Now how to identify it? Go to settings, and if you see Splunk add-on for Microsoft Windows is the one which we have installed here. And if you see the folder name, it is showing Splunk TA Windows. So this is the folder name and this is the name of the application. So make sure and don't try to search for this name, you'll not find it. Try to search for the folder name in the applications always. Now if you see Splunk TA Windows, what are the default applications you are having or default configurations you are having? You see there are different configuration files you are having. For example, I want to modify the props. I want to modify these props. Don't ever try to modify anything in default. If you want to modify this specific props, go into this Splunk TA Windows and try to create a local folder. Now here you can add it. Here you can add the configuration file and try to modify it. For example, here you are having default and click on this props. Now you see in this props you are having DHCP SRV log. So this is the name of my source type. So I don't want this source type, but I want all the configurations or all the stanzas used by this source type to different source type. I want to basically rename this source type name in the props.configuration file. Now what I should do? Copy this, copy this entire thing and create create this props.configuration file in the local folder. Create that in the local folder and create a new props.configuration file, and just to modify the name of the source step, whatever the present in the square braces, modify it and add it here. But don't ever try to touch the default settings. Now let us go to Splunk DB Connect app. Now here you see the app name is Splunk App DB Connect. But what is the name of the application? Splunk DB Connect. So this is the name of the application, and this is Splunk App DB Connect is a folder name. Now go into jars. You are having different jars. You are also having local. In the local we are having UI metrics collector, some configuration file you are having, and you are also having the default. In the default you are seeing different configuration files. If you want to modify the same thing, you can approach. So this is what basically happening for Splunk apps and add-ons. Now let's move into lab session. Now what is this lab session? Download an app, install the app, change the app permissions, verify if the app dashboard displays report. Now for this specific exercise, we are trying to go into Linux servers and verify. So till now we have verified in Windows. Now let's go and download the application for Linux. Now for that purpose, go into EC2, AWS EC2, try to launch instance. Now I will try to launch the instance from AWS Marketplace itself. Now go into AWS Marketplace, and for this AWS Marketplace you no need to add the configurations, or you no need to add any ports for this. The ports are by default. Now try to select T2 micro free eligible, which we are trying to use it. Always use the free versions only. Launch for practice purpose. So existing key pair, I'll use the existing key pair and I'll launch the instance. Launch the instance. Now it is still pending. It will take a couple of minutes, to get this status. Status check is showing initializing. So here, if you see the usage instructions, it will show how to log into this server. So initially when we have created the instance from Red Hat, we have created our own username and password. But here we have to use these instructions and username and password as per the instructions provided here. Now it is showing running and it is showing initializing. So there you have to see 2x2 checks. Now I'll write this as Splunk search head. Now let's give a couple of seconds. Now I'll close this windows. Now app for, so before my instance get ready, I'll download Splunk app for Windows. So Splunk app for Windows infrastructure, I'm trying to download this application because earlier we have used Splunk add-on for Windows. Now I'm trying to install Splunk app for Windows application. Now download this application. Yeah, it is getting downloaded. Meanwhile, I'll try to refresh this. Now whatever the file which got downloaded, it is showing in .tgz only. So we have downloaded the application. It is showing 2.0.2 version and it is compatible with 8.1 version. So compatibility is working. So I can directly install this application. Otherwise, go into the older version and see the version is not yet available for Splunk Cloud. And the products it is showing Splunk Enterprise. This is very older version where it is not compatible with the Splunk versions it is showing. Now let me refresh this again. It is still initializing. Okay, let's give a couple of seconds. Now if we see, it is showing 2x2 checks done. Now we are ready to use this server. Now as per the usage instructions, You can click on this, and if you want to view 8000 port, which is our web port, and to log into this server, the credentials would be admin and capital Splunk hyphen. We will go here, check the usage instructions. It is showing capital Splunk hyphen instance ID. So go into description, copy it, and try to give the password as Splunk hyphen instance ID. Now we are into the server now. Now what we are trying to do, we are trying to download the application from the backend, not from UI. No, so now in order to do it, go into putty and first log into this server. So in order to log into this server, you have to make sure you are giving your PPK. Open it. Now my credentials for Amazon would be EC2 user. Now I'll try to check the Splunk service whether it is running or not. Definitely it is running because we have opened the UI. Now let me go into root and verify it. Now try to check the status / Splunk status. Now it is showing it is running, and we will also verify what are the default applications are present here. Here if you see, these are the default applications which are coming by default into Splunk. Now what we are trying to do, we are trying to add the application into this apps folder. To do it, use WinSCP. WinSCP is a tool. WinSCP is a tool which is used for transferring the files from your desktop to the Linux machines. I'm trying to open it, and it is asking me for host. So always give the host name public DNS IPv4. Copy it, give it here, and username is ec2-user. For this one, you should also connect for SSH. In order to make sure you are connecting this server, you are giving PPK. Yes. Now here if you see, it is showing Splunk app for Windows infrastructure. Now I'll simply drag it to the right side. So whatever the file you are dragging it, it will always present in home EC2 user. Now I am already in apps, but I want this application to be moved from home EC2 user to apps, because let me increase the font. Now whatever the application which I have moved, it is present in home EC2 user. Now I want that application to be added in OPT Splunk etc apps, because whatever the application we are adding in Splunk, it should be present in home directory and etc apps. So in that case only you can able to view the application in your Splunk instance. Now we are in apps, but my application which I have moved is present in home EC2 user. Now I'll go into home EC2 user. Now you see Splunk app for Windows, it is present in .tgz. So now I have to extract this application. To extract this application, you are giving tar-xvf, extracting this application in verbose forcefully. So that is the meaning of this. Now I'll try to give. Now you see it got extracted. Now I'll try to see ls. Now Splunk app Windows infrastructure was created. Now I should move this application from EC2 user to OPT Splunk etc apps. Now move Splunk underscore app underscore Windows. To which location I have to move into OPT Splunk etc apps location. Now I have moved into that location. Now let me verify whether I have moved that application properly or not. ls. Now you see Splunk app for Windows infrastructure is present. You can also verify the permissions. So it is in root permissions. So you can also change the permissions. Ch own -r. So user and I'm changing user and group permissions. Now you can type ls-lrt. Now you see everything I have provided as Splunk and Splunk. Initially it was in root. I have changed the permissions, ch own, changing the ownership to Splunk user and Splunk group. So this is how you are going to see this. Now after this is done, now I am going to restart my Splunk service. So in order to restart my Splunk service, I should always go into bin directory and use a /splunk restart. But I want to restart my Splunk service directly from apps itself. So in that case, you can write this command. Now my Splunk service got restarted. Make sure you're logging into this. Now you see it got automatically restarted, and make sure you're logging into it and verifying your application. Now you see Splunk app for Windows infrastructure. Click on it. Documentation, release notes. See, it is showing. It is loading the dashboard. You have to set up. There are some prerequisites. You have to follow it, and you have to build or log in or to use this application. You have to make sure you are giving all prerequisites to start this application. You have to verify whenever you are trying to configure any application, verify it. For example, here if you see, it is also showing the details. In the details you'll see how to deploy and use this app for Windows infrastructure and reference. So you can go into this and you can verify all the information which you want. Now install the app. Download. We have downloaded the application, we have installed the application. Now try to change the app permission. So here it is asking us to change the app permission. Manage apps. Go into manage apps. As I have shown you earlier, you can directly click on this permissions. It is showing app specific. Now I want to make it global. Now it is showing global. So this is how you are going to change the permissions and verify if the app's dashboard display report. Now, so launch this app and verify whether the dashboard is loading or not. So before that, you can start it. Maybe we'll try to check this, bypass data checks. Next, detecting. So it is detecting. So as this is a free version, I don't think it will show, but still we'll try to check it. So it is verifying all the things. Overview. Click on the overview. Now this is how it is loading the dashboard and all. You have to start. You have to check the prerequisites and all. So this is how we are going to work with such applications. Now for loading the dashboard, you can install a simple application from Splunk base and try to verify whether the dashboard is loading or not. For most of the application, the dashboard will be loading. You can click on the launch application and you can view. You can view the dashboard and interview questions. So here we are having three different types of interview questions where you can see and work. Now, for example, the first question they have asked is difference between app and add-on. What is app and what is add-on? So app is nothing but it provides the front end for visualization. So it is nothing but it is providing front end for visualization, and when coming to add-on, it is back end application with functionality. So back end it will be running scripts, configurations, and entirely new functionality in the form of new visualization and new commands. So add-on is also nothing but technology add-on. So this basically used for gathering the data from APIs through REST APIs, and it will parses the data. So and we have also seen that add-on will not have GUI, but apps will have GUI. You can view it and we can visualize the dashboards. But for add-on, we don't have such things. On which instance you are going to have the Splunk add-ons installed? So as we have seen, basically Splunk add-on will be installed on indexers, search heads, and heavy forwarders, mostly on heavy forwarders in real time, and you can also install those in search head and indexes. But for Splunk applications, you should work on installing them on search heads only. Configuration files in any basic add-on. So if you go into if you go into apps, so whatever we have installed, go into this Splunk TA windows, it is technology add-on, and go into default and verify what are the basic different configuration files present in this default folder. So this is what happening in Splunk, user roles and authentication in Splunk. So what is user, what is a role, and what is authentication, and why it is important in Splunk? So basically, we are having hundreds or thousands of applications in Splunk. So who has to actually access those applications, and who are the users who need to search for the data for all those applications? For example, for hundreds of applications, for each and every application, there will be a different group, obviously, and also there will be a different user who need to access each and every application. So in Splunk, it is something like we should not give access to all the applications to all the users. Only the required application should be given to required user only. So we are not going to give access to all the users. So in this case, definitely we need to restrict the access to the applications and restrict the users who they are actually accessing the applications. For example, let me open Splunk, and I am the admin here in this Splunk. So when I am admin, I will definitely have access to each and every application in Splunk. And if I open the settings, and I can modify whatever the configuration settings I need to modify. And as an admin, I will have access to each and every application, and I can verify each and every application. But when I'm having some other application in Splunk, so I should give access to the specific application team who need to access that application data, and I should not give access to each and every application in Splunk. For example, I'll open this index is equal to underscore internal, and if I open this index is equal to underscore internal, as this is application logs, I will be having access. Definitely admin will be having access, but no other user can search for this internal logs. So if I want to give this internal log access to some specific users, I can give it so that they can only search for index is equal to underscore internal. Not only for this, for any specific application data, you should give access to only the specific application team, not to each and every application team member. Now, so our course curriculum, we are going to see about user roles and authentication here. Now today's agenda: describe user roles in Splunk, create a custom role, how we are going to create a custom role, integrate the Splunk with LDAP and SAML. So how this LDAP and SAML is going to work. So managing users and roles. So here if we see users and roles define user privileges. To have access to Splunk instance, definitely a user must have either a Splunk user account or it assignment to one or more Splunk roles. So we are going to create a role, and how we are going to assign that role to specific user, we are going to see it. And user accounts can be assigned to native Splunk accounts, LDAP or Active Directory, SAML, or through scripted access to PAM, Radius, or other user account systems. So we are having different authentication methods in Splunk. Native Splunk accounts, through native Splunk accounts, you can view who all the users are present, and to whom you can give the access. And LDAP or Active Directory, SAML, there are some configurations which we need to make to get or to access such type of authentication methods in Splunk, and through scripted access. So here identifying roles. So if I check the roles in Splunk, there will be different roles: admin, can, delete, power, Splunk system role, and user. These are the different roles in Splunk, And let us also verify, go into settings and go into roles. So if you are going into roles, we are having different roles in Splunk. So admin, can delete, DB connect admin. So Daniel role, this is the one which I have created, and DB connect user, power, SRC admin, system role, and users. So we are having different roles, and for these different roles, we are having different capabilities and also inherited capabilities. So this we are going to see. And for admin, if you see, all the native capabilities, so there are 147, almost every capability is having to admin. So admin can access anything in Splunk only except can delete. So admin is also not having privilege to use this can delete. So what is this can delete? Can delete is a role which is helping a user to delete anything in Splunk. He can delete anything only if he is having can delete privilege in Splunk. So basically for admins also they have disabled this can delete. Why they have disabled? Because no one can delete the data in Splunk. Even admin should not have privileges to delete the data in Splunk. So what if they are getting some request to delete some unwanted data in Splunk? So what they are going to do? So they will add this can delete to admin privilege so that he can delete the data in Splunk. And how they'll delete the data in production? They'll raise some change ticket and they'll assign this can delete role to admin. And once they have deleted the data, and they'll reassign back the can delete role. For example, if I open this admin, if you see can delete, even admin is also not having can delete. Go into capabilities, and almost all the capabilities are present for admin because he is the one who can access anything. For example, let me try to delete any data in Splunk. Now let me search for index is equal to sample. So I'll search it for all time because I don't have any real time data as of now in my Splunk. So when I'm searching for index is equal to sample, I'm getting some data. As we are seeing here, admin is also not having can delete privileges. So what I'll try to do, I'll try to delete the data. As I'm admin here, whether I'll see I can delete the data or not. Error in delete command, you have insufficient privileges. So if we see here, even admin is also not having privileges to delete the data. So whenever I'm trying to assign can delete role and saving it. Now I'll try to refresh it. Now I'll try to search. Now you see, deleted. I can delete the data only when I am adding this can delete role to admin. So my job is done. So I'll remove this can delete and I'll save it. So this is how you are going to use can delete in Splunk. And Splunk system role, special role that allows the system services to run without a defined user context. There are some configurations which are running in the backend, so it is running by Splunk system role. So you can see this Splunk system role in the users sometimes. So in users, for example, what is user? So let me search for index is equal to star, and if I see here on the left side you can see the fields. For example, okay, I'll search for index is equal to underscore internal only. Here I'm having the real time data. So whatever the user present here, we can see it. For example, there are 119 fields. So I'll just try to verify in the interesting fields whether I'm having any user or not. So try to click on this and try to search for user. Now if you see here, yes, I'm having user field. Now I have selected that field so that I can view it as a selected field. If you see here, Splunk system user, admin, nobody, Daniel, none. So these are the users who are present in Splunk. So we can see the users who are running the searches and also the list of users here. Now defining custom user roles. So you can define the role, and if you see here, it is asking for role name, and whatever the role name you are giving, it will be saved. It will be saved as that specific role name, and whatever the privileges or whatever the capabilities inheritance you are adding to this specific role, it will be showing it here. And default app, what is this default app? So whenever you are assigning this role to a specific user or a specific group, whenever they are trying to log into Splunk, they'll immediately see the default app. For example, my default app is search and reporting. So if I open my Splunk, I'll directly see this search and reporting app when I immediately log into Splunk. And restrict terms. So if you don't want to give access to specific terms such as source type or some specific source types or some specific search terms, and or you can use that and you can restrict the terms here. So in the latest version of Splunk, you can see that the different things here. For example, if we are going to roles, I'll try to create a new role. What is the role I'll create Mindmajix, for example. So I'm trying to create Mindmajix. And inheritance, what is the role you want to add it? What is the existing role? If you want to add the existing role, you can add it. So here I'll give user. So this role should have only the user privileges, so I'm giving only user here. And capabilities, what all the capabilities you want to add. I don't want to give any special capabilities to this specific role. So if you want to give any apps restore or a database connection create or identity creation, or if you want this specific role to edit some searches or some reports or some dashboards, you can uh, give the specific capability which is required to this specific role, and you can add it. As of now, I don't want to give any capability here. So indexes, so what index you want to give? So here I will try to give only underscore index, and let's try to see this. So I'm giving access to underscore internal. So this specific role, to whomever I'm assigning this, they should only able to search index is equal to underscore internal, and a part of it they should not search any other thing. So I have provided this one. And restrictions, so if you want to restrict any term, you can add it here. Search, in the search filter you can add it, and you can verify the results. For example, if they want to search only for specific source type, so for internal index, we are having many source types. So you don't want to give access to all the source types. You want to give access to only specific single source type. Then you can add it here in the search bar, and you can verify the search results, and you can create it. And what is this resource? So what is this resource? So this resource, you are limiting each and everything here. So this is basically very important in production. Why it is important in production? Because production is an environment where there are many users who are trying to search for their application data. Now, if each and every user, let's suppose say we are having 1,000 users in Splunk. So if each and every user is running the searches continuously, then the server may go down, and there are chances that server may crash. So in that case, we don't want to make each and every user running the searches continuously. So in that case, we can restrict the searches. So standard search limit 3, real time search limit 6. So they can search for real time data 6 times, and standard search limit they can only search for 3 times. And after that they cannot able to search for the data. And disk space limit is 100 MB. So whatever the searches they are running, they should get the results only within the search limit 100 MB. So if you want to increase the limit for specific role, so for all the roles, I'll give the default 100 MB. But if I want to give any critical application users, I will create one role and I'll try to increase the limit. So you can increase the limit for the specific roles. Now I'll try to create this role. So I have created some mind magic role, and now what I'll do means I'll try to create some users, and I'll try to assign this mind magic role. So you can also add that one. So before that, so user level and role level limits, if you want to limit, as I have discussed. And inheritance. Inheritance is the one which we have discussed just now. If you want to add the existing roles, if you want to add the existing roles, you can add it. So whenever you are inheriting admin, definitely we are not going to give this admin role or admin privilege to anyone. And for example, if I want to give this Daniel role to this Mindmajix role, I can give it. So whatever present in Daniel role, whatever the capabilities or whatever the indexes or whatever we have restricted, everything will be assigned to this Mindmajix. So for example, Daniel role is having some different indexes. So for here Mindmajix, we have only given underscore internal. For let's suppose say Daniel role is having some other two indexes added here in this role. So whenever you are adding this uh, inheritance, this Mindmajix will also have other two more indexes where the users can search it for. So that is what inheritance is doing. Existing role can be added to the new role. Implications of inheritance. If you create a new role that inherits from another role such as user, a new role has all the capabilities of the inherited role. So whatever the capabilities the inherited role is having, everything will be assigned. For example, real time searches. The new role inherits the index settings, both default and allowed. In the new role, you can not turn off capabilities or index access that were inherited from the original role. So whenever you are trying to inherit and you don't want the inherited index capability, so you cannot turn off it. So that is what he is explaining. So definitely whatever the privileges are present in this Daniel role, definitely it will be assigned to this Mindmajix. You cannot modify it. So that is the reason, if you don't want some specific index capability from this Daniel role, so definitely you no need to add this inheritance. You create some new role and you can assign the indexes whatever you want. That is what happening in Splunk. If you want a role like user but some capabilities turned off, make a new role. So create a new role that does not inherit from any other role. Turn on all the same capabilities as in user except those you want turned off. So that is what he is explaining again. Assign the appropriate indexes to new role. So whatever the indexes you want, assign only that one. Add or remove capabilities. So add or remove capabilities is present in authorized.configuration in Splunk. So capabilities in little older version it is showing like this, but here in the newer version it is showing capabilities like this. So where can we see these capabilities? In authorized.configuration file you can see it. So go into see program files and I'll try to verify the default settings. So my Splunk is installed. As I'm verifying this Windows Splunk, you can verify it Linux Splunk also. So in the Linux, what is happening? Your Splunk is always installed on OPT directory as a best practice. So you'll go into this OPT Splunk and go into etc system default. So in the default, you can verify this authorized.configuration file. So this authorized.configuration file is having the capabilities defined. So these are all the capabilities which we are having. Role underscore user. This is another capability where you can see different capabilities which were assigned. So role underscore admin. Admin is having almost all, and role underscore, so this is the role Splunk system, and role underscore admin is admin role. And these are all the settings which we are having in this authorized.configuration file. And if you don't want any specific role or if you want any other capability, so you can add that in authorized.configuration file, or you can do it from UI also. Edit roles grantable capability. So example, I want to separate and delegate administration task between system admins and data admins without granting full admin role. So here separate he want to separate and some he want administration task to be done, but he don't want to give full admin role. So issues to consider: with edit underscore role and with the edit underscore user capabilities. Users can promote self to full admin role. So whenever you are trying to give this edit role or edit user, they are having the capability to give the admin privilege. So never ever give this edit role or edit user capabilities. Want to restrict grantable capabilities only to the level sub admins. So he want sub admin task to be done but not full administration privileges. So in that case you can give edit roles grantable capability to the sub admin role. Can only create roles with subset of the capabilities that the current user role has. Must user in conjunction with edit user capability. So that we will see it in real time how it is going to work. I'll create some specific roles and I'll try to assign whatever the capabilities is required, so that we can see what exactly is happening. Now here, admin edit roles grantable capability, what he is doing, he is trying to give some access. And if you see access controls, but here in Splunk we are directly having users. Users can be added directly from settings and users. Here having this user option here. And if you see, he has created some user and he is trying to add users, and he is restricting. You can specify indexes, whatever the index that specific user should see, only that one he is trying to assign it. And most importantly, index settings. So all non-internal indexes, we are not going to give this all non-internal indexes to anyone, because all non-internal indexes are nothing but whatever the custom indexes which we have created in Splunk. So all internal indexes are nothing but whatever the indexes are coming by default in Splunk. So all non-internal indexes, which we are not going to give, and whatever the index we want to give, only that we are going to give it. So now go into settings and you can create a user. Go into user and create some Mindmajix. So I'll create this Mindmajix. First I'll try to search it. Anyhow I'm having only two users, there are no other users, specific user. So what I'll try to do, so basically in Splunk you will be seeing hundreds or thousands of users. So in that case definitely you are going and searching for the user, whether that specific user is present or not. If user is not present, then happily create something. Full name, if you want to give email address and password. So whenever we are going to create a native user in Splunk. So native user is nothing but authentication will be Splunk itself. Now I'll give some password here. What password I'll give? I'll give some, okay, I'll give Mindmajix itself. And I'm giving user okay, user role I'll try to give, and I don't want to give any other role. Later we'll see how the other roles are going to work. But if you see here, this is important. Require password change on first login. So I have created some user and launch app. Default app, whenever they are opening Splunk, they'll see this launch application. And if you want the search bar to be displayed directly, so I'll give search and reporting. And whenever this user is trying to log in, he should require password change on first login, because as a admin I have created some password and I am giving access to that specific user. Now what I'll do, I'll give this user and I'll give this password to the user. So what happens, he should definitely change the password. Now I'll log out. Now I'll try to search. I'll try to log in with this Mindmajix and I'll sign in. So if you see here, it is asking for new password. So it is important that whenever a user is created in Splunk, they should change and they should have their own password. Now I'll give with a new password. Now try to search. Now you see, whenever I'm logging in, I'm directly seeing the search bar here. So because I have provided them the default application as search and reporting. So that is the reason a search bar is being displayed here for this Mindmajix logout. Now, so I want to show other thing. So as I have given this Mindmajix only user privileges. So if you click on settings, he is not having all the setting options because he is just a user in Splunk. But whenever I am trying to log in as administrator, definitely I am having all the privileges. So check in the settings. This is what happening. And what is my default application for admin? The default application is the launch application. So that is the reason I am seeing this one, and Mindmajix user is seeing the search bar. And if you see, all the authentication related settings are saved in authentication.configuration file. So here we have seen what is authorized, and if you see the authentication, so here the authentication type is Splunk here. So as I'm using the trial Splunk version, it is showing the auth type as Splunk. Whenever you are trying to use some other authentications like LDAP or SAML, then the authentication type will be different. You can add the extra one authentication type, or whenever you are creating LDAP or whenever you are trying to create the SAML one, the authentication will be created automatically. Here in this authentication.configuration file, you can verify it. Now we are having different authentications as discussed. Splunk native, the one which we have created, the users which we have created, and LDAP, SAML, and scripted. What is this LDAP? So before going to this LDAP, let's see on this Splunk native authentication. So you can create user accounts directly in Splunk. So whatever we are creating, you can create the user accounts directly in Splunk. So we have created the user account, and for admin, or the passwords are stored in etc password, so you can also verify it. Go into Splunk and go into etc. So in the etc you are having password file. So click on this password file. I'm trying to open it with notepad. So if you see here, admin, and here I'm having the password. So password is always in encrypted format. If you want to change it, you can change it. You can change it and you can add. You can change it and you can add whatever the password you want. I'll try to create admin. And whenever you are trying to save this file, then the file is again encrypting your password. So I have created some Daniel user and I have created some Mindmajix user. So everything is what it is doing, everything is encrypted. So this password file is encrypting everything. Even if you want to change the password, you can change it. For example, if this user is coming to me and saying that I have forgot my password. So in that case, admins will be having privileges to change this one, modify this one, and add the new password and save the password file. Whenever they are trying to do like that, the password again will be showing in encrypted format only. Don't want to save it. Otherwise you can also set it in users. Go into users and try to add the password again. And if you see here, you should try to have a very strong password and use a blank password file to completely disable. So if you don't want to use this native authentication, so in that case you can add the blank password file by removing all of them. So if you are not having this native authentication, what is the other authentication methods? So you can go with LDAP or you can go with some other authentication methods in Splunk. So you can have mix of Splunk, and also you can have the mix of LDAP with some other authentication methods. So in real time, and organizations are mostly using this LDAP only. They don't go for other authentication methods because they are tough. Why they are tough? We are going to see that one. So managing users in Splunk, whenever you are trying to see the native users, so those can be edited or those can be deleted. And you can also define the time zone and default applications for them. And if I try to go into users, so it is showing me edit options. So you can clone, you can search it, whatever you want. For example, for this admin, it is not showing any delete option because admin is by default. And if you see Daniel, you can clone it, you can delete it, and you can view capabilities and indexes, whatever you want, you can see it. But authentication method, what it is showing? It is showing Splunk. And the same here also it is showing. If it is authentication method is some LDAP, so it will show LDAP authentication type here. And the default application it is showing in the older version. Here the default application it is showing search for this one, and the launcher for Daniel. So here we are having the roles, whatever the roles are assigned, it is showing it here. And the time zone, if you want to add the time zone, you can add it. But I did not add it while creating user. So if you want to add any specific time zone, you can do it. And authentication. So this is what we have did. We have provided username and password. And if these are optional, full name, email address, time zone, default application is optional. And role is pointing to user automatically. If you want to modify it, you can modify that one as well. And directory server integration. So here we are having integrate Splunk with the directory server, works with multiple LDAP servers. Splunk can work with different LDAP servers including Open LDAP and Active Directory. You can configure from Splunk web settings also. Otherwise you can use authentication.configuration. User accounts are stored in directory server. Enforce the same user account and password policy. You need to follow certain steps, and the users use the same username and password in Splunk that they use elsewhere. Optionally, the groups in the directory server can be mapped to Splunk roles. So if you want to add any Splunk role, you can do it. Now going to this LDAP authentication, what exactly happening in this LDAP authentication? So LDAP, you need to have some LDAP server, and you should have some port, whatever the port you want to add it. We are also having some default port for this LDAP authentication. So LDAP maintains the user credentials and user ID and password it maintains, plus other information. For example, this is the flow diagram what is happening from client web. So from your desktop you are trying to log into Splunk, so you are requesting Splunk login, and what it does, it goes to LDAP server and it check authentication whether the given user ID and the password is properly added, or properly you have given your user ID or password to log into Splunk. So when the user ID and password matches in LDAP server, then it will grant the access, it will grant the authentication, and it will allow you to log into Splunk. So a user session is created here, and you can also create a group in LDAP. LDAP is nothing but it is handled by some other team. They will be handling this LDAP server, and whatever the user you want to create through this LDAP, you should contact them so that they'll create some user for you. So the user can be seen in Splunk. Otherwise, mostly what is happening means this LDAP team, they will be creating group. For example, for one single application in Splunk, you are having group of 10 members. 10 members should access the single application in Splunk. So you cannot create each and every user in Splunk, and you cannot add each and every role which you have created and which you have added some specific capabilities or users in it. So what you can do means, you can create a single group and you can create a single role, and whatever the group have to access, for example they need to access one index and they need to have some single capability. So in that case you can add the single capability, and you can add the single role to that single index to that specific role, and you can assign that specific role to the group which you have already created. So creating LDAP strategy, how you can create a LDAP strategy here. So click on configure Splunk to use LDAP, and here you are having different options in the authentication method. Click new to add new LDAP strategy. For example, go here, go into settings, and go into authentication methods. If you click on this authentication methods, Splunk authentication, it is always on because it is internal one, and external you are having LDAP, and also you are having SAML. So click on this LDAP, configure Splunk to use LDAP. So whenever you are trying to create this LDAP strategy, here you are having new LDAP. So click on this new LDAP. Here it is asking LDAP strategy name and host name, port details. So port details, it is showing 389 is by default. So you will be getting all this information from LDAP team itself. So you'll need to have all these details before configuring this LDAP in Splunk. So and save it. So you need to give all this information and what all the information is required. If you see here, normally the configuration is based on information given to you by LDAP administrators. So LDAP administrators, LDAP is nothing but lightweight directory access protocol. So LDAP connection settings, user settings, determine which part of the LDAP directory stores Splunk users, and group settings, dynamic group. You are having different settings which need to be added while creating this LDAP. So you have to make sure you are giving all the information correct, otherwise you will need to contact LDAP administrators. If any of the information goes wrong also, your LDAP strategy will not be created as authentication in Splunk. So once you have created this LDAP here, so once you have created this LDAP, what exactly is happening? BCG underscore corp underscore NA. Some LDAP group is created. Some LDAP settings authentication is created. So once it is created with some host and port details, you'll be getting an option. You can enable or you can disable this LDAP. If you don't want to use this LDAP strategy, you can simply disable it. But mostly organizations or mostly Splunk who is using this Splunk, they'll be working with LDAP only. And once this LDAP is created, you can able to map groups. So you can check, click on this map groups, and if you click on that map groups, it will show what all the groups are present in this LDAP. So application teams who has already created some groups through this LDAP, they can view the group names. So whatever the group names are present in this LDAP, you can verify. There are some Splunk admins, Splunk biz dev, Splunk IT operations team, Splunk SOC team. So there are different teams where they are using this LDAP and they have got created with this LDAP groups. Now groups are created. Now what is the next step? So when groups are created, make sure you have created the specific role for each and every group. So what is required, only that you are going to add in the group, and click on that specific group. And when you are clicking on this, for example, they have clicked on this Splunk SOC. So when they are clicking on this Splunk SOC, whatever the available roles are present in Splunk, they can view them. So available roles are security ops. So they are having many roles, but what they want to map to that specific group is security ops. So they have created some security ops and they have added some privileges and they are mapping to this specific group. And they are just clicking on this role and the role got selected and you can save it. And if you see on the right side, for this Splunk SOC group, security ops role was added. So it was added by the administrators itself. Not all groups must be mapped. So not all, only whatever is required, only that you are going to map. Mappings can be changed at any time. For example, this is Splunk SOC team don't want this specific role and they want other index or other capability. So they can edit this existing role or they can delete this role and use a existing role which is present. So you can verify based upon the data and based upon the requirements, you can do it. So if you want more information on this LDAP, you can see it. And reload authentication configuration, if you see it in Splunk here, after creating this one, going to authentication method, you are having reload authentication configuration. So what it is doing, so if there is some issue or if there is some new group created but I cannot see it in Splunk, so you can reload this authentication synced successfully. You are going to see this message on the top syncing, and you'll see it is just refreshing Splunk and getting the information. Splunk caches users data from LDAP. Whenever new user data is cached the first time that user logs in. Check this to force an immediate reload. You can reload if you want. And next one we are having single sign-on with SAML. So here what is happening? You can configure this Splunk platform to use this security accession markup language. So SAML is nothing but security accession markup language. This is one of the authentication scheme for single sign-on. So using this information, what is happening? It should basically support identity provider. So it should support this identity provider. So there are some uh, prerequisites which we need to follow for this SAML single sign-on, and this Splunk will basically support many different types of identity provider for logins. So Splunk, as I'm repeating it again, Splunk platform basically supports many different types of identity providers for logins using this SAML authentication. So you can configure this platform with settings that are specific to your IDP. IDP is nothing but identity provider, and what it does, you should also require some certificates and encryption for Splunk Enterprise so that some communication will be established between Splunk and this IDP, which will be secure. And mostly they'll not go with, because the certifications and encryption, everything will be a little tough when compared to LDAP. So LDAP is also secure, but uh, people don't use this SAML because there is a easy way to use LDAP, and creating groups and creating users through LDAP. It is quite easy when compared to this single sign-on. And if you see here, identity provider, it is also same like LDAP only. So we are requesting Splunk login. So Splunk login is requested and it goes to IDP and redirect authentication. It will check whether it need to grant or deny. So based upon validate assertion, create a session cookie. So it will verify everything. If it is okay, it will grant the access. Otherwise, it will deny the access. And this is what happening. So click on this SAML. What is happening? Configure Splunk to use SAML. The list of current SAML groups displays. So whatever the list, it displays. So before that, what you need to do? Click SAML configuration. So you should click on this SAML configuration so that you can start working on this SAML. So configuring this SAML, it is a little different. And a single sign-on IDP's certificate file is required, entity ID, attribute query URL, some user and passwords, and you should also export Splunk metadata. So you should give some URL, and IDP administrator will be helping us with all this requirements. So they'll import it to system and configure its settings. IDP administrator exports its configured metadata and import IDP metadata and update SAML configuration settings. So this is what basically happening here, importing and exporting certain configuration metadata files, and where it is taking a lot of time, and also um, difficult to configure such things. So IDP, certificate chains, issuer ID, entity ID. So these are all something different which we need to configure. And a single sign-on with reverse proxy. So single sign-on, it allows you to use web proxy to handle Splunk authentication. So this is again what is happening. Authentication is moved to web proxy. So whenever authentication is moved to web proxy, which passes along authentication to Splunk web. Again, client is trying to access, it goes to a proxy server, it proxy authorizes a client, and proxy passes request with username. So if everything goes well only, you can able to log in. And these are all not so important, but LDAP configuration is important when compared to SAML and single sign on reverse with the reverse proxy. And you are also having scripted authentication. So there are other types of authentication systems that Splunk can integrate with using scripts. So what types of scripts? For the most up to date information on scripted authentication, you can see readme file in share Splunk authentication auth script. So go into Splunk, go into share folder and go into Splunk. You are having auth script samples. So you can verify this, you can see the readme file and you'll come to know how the scripted authentication is going to work in Splunk. So this is what happening about this user roles and authentication. Always remember, mostly people will be working on LDAP and you should have some basic idea on this SAML, what exactly is happening. Now lab exercise. So in this lab exercise, you need to create custom users, create role and map to the custom user, verify this assigned role is working properly or not, verify the configurations. Now go into settings, going to user. So Mindmajix, I have already created some user. Try to edit it. If you see, we have already given password and we have changed it. Okay, let me create a new user. I'll create a user with sample user. Give the password. Now, whenever they are trying to log in, you should always see search and reporting application and user role I have created. And whenever they are trying to log in, that requires password on first change. Yes. Now I have created some sample user, create custom users. So initially I have created Mindmajix and now I am creating sample user. Now create role and map to the custom user. So now I'll create the role. I'll give it with the same name, sample user I'll give. And I have added internal index in Mindmajix. So the same one I'll try to give. Mindmajix I'll try to add. So in the inheritance, so what it is doing means it will try to inherit this Mindmajix and it will not take any other capabilities. So whatever present here, it will take only that one. I am not restricting anything. I have given only 3 and 3 for it and I'll create it. Now I have created some sample user where I have inherited Mindmajix and map to the custom user. So what I'll try to do, I will map the sample user role to this sample user. Now here if we see, come down, you are having Mindmajix. So the one which we have created is sample user where it is having Mindmajix inherited. I'll save it. Now I'll log out. Verify the assigned role is working properly or not. So my username is sample user and my password. Now if we see here, sample user and settings, I'm having only user privileges. Now I'll try to search for the data. Index is equal to star and I'll search for all time. If we see, for sample user I'm getting some data here. Now I'll log out this and I'll try to log in with admin. Now what I'll try to do, I'll try to create a new role. I will give XYZ role and I don't want to give anything here, even the user. I'll try to give underscore internal here and I'll create it. Now this XYZ role, now I'll try to add it for sample user. So already I'm having user. So user might be having some privileges where it is going and searching for some other data. So I don't want to give any such rules. So I'll give only XYZ. I did not click on change password. That is the reason it did not ask me to change my thing, change the password. Now what I'll do, I'll try to log in with sample user. And also if we see administrator, in the administrator, I have logged in with administrator. Make sure whenever you are trying to add any specific role, definitely you should have to use this user also, because user is the one who can able to search for the data. Otherwise, make sure you are having some capabilities, or you are having some inherited privileges that needs to be added to the specific role. Now if we see here user, make sure click on the user, and also you make sure what all the capabilities are there. Accelerate search, that is fine, and what all the indexes are included. Try to exclude this all non-internal indexes, because whenever you are trying to see this all non-internal indexes, it can be, there are chances that it can search for all the data in Splunk, so I don't want that one. And for this user, I don't want to give anything, let it be only with capabilities. And for this XYZ, what is happening, I'll try to verify the index. I'm trying to give only internal indexes, and I'm not giving anything here. So now I have logged in with sample user, and I'll try for index is equal to underscore internal. I should able to search or view the data for this index is equal to underscore internal. Yes, I can able to view the data. Now I'll try to search for index is equal to star. So already we have provided with the user privilege here. It is showing me. Now what I'll try to do means I'll try to delete the existing data for this sample user. So what I can do, for this XYZ privilege, I'll try to give access can delete. Now go to this and try to delete the data. Refresh it, and whenever I'm trying to delete the data, insufficient, okay, I'm doing it from administrator. Now what I can do means I'll log out, and I'll give sample user and password. Now I'll try to search index is equal to star. Now what is happening, it is not showing any non-internal data, and I'll try to search for index is equal to underscore internal. It is allowing me to search for this internal index. Now I'll try to verify DDAP index. So what this DDAP is doing, if there is any duplicate indexes, it will remove, and it will show what all the privileges is sample user can search for. It is showing only one. So let me search the same thing using administrator login. So audit, internal, introspection, telemetry, there are many indexes. But for the sample user, we did not give any index except underscore internal, and whatever the index present in user, all non-internal indexes are present initially for that specific user role. So we have removed it, and we have added only the underscore internal. That is the reason you are able to search only for this data, and apart from this you cannot able to search anything. And I have provided delete privilege for this one also. So if they are searching, or if they are adding any data and want to delete it, he can delete it. But make sure you are reverting the changes once the delete is completed from their end. So go into this one and remove this. Now what all the users we have created, verify assign role is working properly or not. Yes, it is working, because we have verified with underscore internal, and admin can able to search all the more than 4 indexes which is starting with underscore. But the sample user which we have created, he can able to search only one index, because to only one index we have provided that specific role, and we have mapped it to the user. Verify the configurations. How do you verify the configurations? Now you can also verify the configurations in etc system default, where it is already having authorized.configuration, which is showing the what it is showing in authorized. it is showing the capabilities. So try to verify the passwords. It will also show with the user details. Otherwise, you are having the users, you can verify it there. So I'll try to verify users with passwords. So sample user I have created Mindmajix. Daniel is already present, so I just verified in passwords. If you want, you can verify it in users. Click on users. So Daniel, Mindmajix, sample user, whatever the user we have created, that is also present in this user folder. So you can verify all these configurations while creating this one. Define authentication methods in Splunk. Yes, we are having different authentication methods in Splunk. Native user, native Splunk authentication, SAML authentication, and LDAP authentication. So you can describe them, what we have discussed just now. SAML, most of the organizations are not going to work with this IDP, and LDAP is important because most of the users are working with LDAP. Create LDAP authentication with the details by giving LDAP users, LDAP port details, LDAP host details, and some user specific related DNs. Everything you have to give based upon the configurations, and provide all the details and create LDAP. And after creating LDAP, you can able to see map groups, and whatever the role you want to assign, you can assign it. What are the different roles in Splunk? You are having admin, power, user, candidate, and the system user role. Based upon the requirements, we are going to add can delete role. Even the admin is also not having can delete privileges to delete the data in Splunk, and the users will be having less privileges when compared to power. So whenever you are trying to give power, uh, power uh, power role to the specific user, then they can able to view most of the dashboards in Splunk, which don't have any restrictions. And the power is having more capabilities when compared to users, that you can verify it in capabilities. How do you create a role and assign to group? So go into settings and create a role, whatever the role, inheritance capabilities, any restrictions, or if you want to add more resources also, you can add it, and add the indexes, whatever the indexes you are having in Splunk, or that is required to specific role. Create that role and assign to a group, LDAP group or SAML group, whatever the authentication method you are creating, that one you can have it. So in the last session, we have seen some of the input mechanisms, and this session we are going to see how do we deploy scripted inputs, windows, and network related inputs in Splunk. So basically what is happening means, in Splunk we are having different data onboardings. So data onboardings or data integration methods, both are same. So what are those and how we are configuring them to get the data into Splunk? So that we have to see. So for looking into it, for example, if I talk about different data onboardings in Splunk, we are having different data mechanisms. So first one is universal forwarder. So universal forwarder is nothing but where we install a universal forwarder agent and get the data into Splunk. And the next one is we are having different data input like HEC or scripted inputs, or by using a network. So networks and scripted, that we are going to see now. And we are working on configuration files to get the data into Splunk. So these are the basic integration mechanisms, and these are very important going further. And in the interview questions, definitely people will ask what are the different onboardings you have did, and also what are the same data onboarding or data integration methods, both are same, how you are getting the data in Splunk. So for example, here if you go into settings, we are having data inputs. So in the data inputs, you can see different data integration mechanisms, or different input things where we can configure and get the data into Splunk. But before going to that, let's see the overview of what is exactly happening. So today's agenda: create network TCP and UDP inputs, create optional settings for network inputs, create a basic scripted inputs. So how you are going to work, create a TCP or UDP and basic scripted inputs, these all we are going to see. So basically when we are talking about network input, network TCP or UDP, we are using Splunk heavy forwarders. So heavy forwarders is the one which will handle the syslog mechanisms. So how the flow flow will be data will be sending from application server to heavy forwarders, and then from heavy forwarders to our indexes, and from indexes to our Splunk search head. So like this the data flow will be. So let me open. Okay, before we see that, let me tell about this network inputs. A Splunk instance forwarder or indexer can listen on a TCP or UDP port for incoming data. So syslog is a good example for network based data. Syslog is nothing but either we will configure UDP or TCP input on a forwarder if possible, or on an indexer as per the document. So this adds a layer of resiliency to your topology, buffering, load balancing, cloning, etc. If indexer restarts also, there will not be any loss in TCP or UDP data which is coming into Splunk. Now minimizes the workload that must be done by the indexer. Manage the network connections on the forwarder can also be useful to bridge network segments if required. See, for example, what they are saying means we are getting data into Splunk in different ways. So TCP and UDP is also one of the way to get the data into Splunk. So where do you configure this? Where the port actually listens. The port will actually listen on either indexer or forwarder. So you can use either of the Splunk instances. So switches, routers, sensors, network devices. These are the network devices. These are going on to indexes, and from indexes to search head. How this is happening? Why it is going to indexes or forwarders? So basically this has to go on forwarders only. So why we are not pushing on indexer? Because indexer will be working on indexing, and forwarder we are forwarding the data to the indexer, and then from indexer to search head we are pushing the data. So basically what is happening on forwarders, we are also adding parsing things. So props.configuration file will be added on forwarders. So in order to reduce the burden on indexer, we are not doing parsing on indexer, rather we are doing parsing on forwarder. So like that, in the same way, to reduce the burden on indexer, the data flow, so syslog server in Splunk is nothing but it should be heavy forwarders. So what is happening? Let me open WordPad. So basically what is happening means we are having application server. Application server is nothing but end user server. So from the application server, what is happening? They are pushing the data onto forwarder. So forwarder is nothing but syslog server here. So syslog server which will be using either TCP or UDP. So now how the application server end user will be sending data to forwarder? They will be configuring some rsyslog configurations from their end. So application server will configure. Now what they'll do? They will configure rsyslog by giving what they'll do by giving forwarder details along with port. So what port? Either it can be TCP or UDP. They'll configure their application server with rsyslog. So in rsyslog they'll be having some configuration files. They'll be configured by giving some endpoint URL which is nothing but forwarder details along with port. Now what is happening? We can see this application data in our forwarder now. So there will be some connection established, and we can able to see the forwarded data on our server. And from forwarder the data will be moving to indexers, and from indexes the data will be seen on search heads. So this is the flow which is basically happening. So whatever you are configuring on forwarder, it should be coming onto indexes, and from indexes to search heads where we are searching for the data. So usually indexes will not handle parsing, because if indexes are handling parsing and also indexing, the burden on the indexes will be more. That is the reason they use forwarders also for parsing purpose. Adding network input. How do you add the network input? Where do you need to go? Go into settings and data inputs. So there you can see, you can give the port details, source name, either it can be DNS. You can also have only accept from. So if you are having many servers which are already connected to either TCP or UDP, but you don't want the data from all the servers to your forwarders, so in that case what you can do? You can accept data or connection only from few servers. You can accept that thing. And if you see here, we are having optional network input settings. You can fine tune the input settings by editing the standard directory. So metadata override, sender filtering options, network input queues. You can also define the queues, memory queue, persistent queue. We are having different queues in Splunk. That queues also you can configure or define it in your configuration files. These are all the settings you can see in further slides also. If you see on the left side example, so how the inputs.configuration will look like. So if it is UDP, you can directly give 514 port and the server details. So connection host, which connection and all, and source type. What is the source type you want to add? Source type is nothing but props.configuration file. And for TCP also, we are having the same thing, and the source from where you are actually getting the data in Splunk. If you see here, you are having the same thing, connection host attribute controls how the host field for that input is. So you can control such things by giving DNS or IP address, anything you can give. If you don't give anything, it will take the host value itself. So you can give anything, whatever you want based upon your application server. So based upon the TCP port, source type and connection host, either it can be DNS or either it can be IP address, anything you can give. So how the configurations will look like, we will see now. So go here and go into settings. If you go into settings, you are having data inputs. So in the data inputs, you are having TCP or UDP. So TCP or UDP, what is there? Listen on a TCP port for incoming data. So first you need to make sure there is no firewall for the port. If you are getting data from the application server, so they are defining some port. First you have to make sure that application server is connecting to our Splunk server or not. So if it is not connecting, you have to make sure whether if there is any firewall or not. So if there is any firewall, you need to make sure you open that firewall and both the servers are connected to each other, TCP or UDP. So click on this. So UDP default port is 514. For TCP, you can define any port, but make sure that you add that port and the server and the port is listening to your Splunk server. You add the port, whatever the port you want, you can add it. For example, if I give 1001 port and source name override, if you want to override the source name, accept only from. So if you want to accept only from a specific IP addresses, then you can write it. And next, if you see source type, existing source type also, you have it. Otherwise, you can create your own source type. So whatever the source type you want. For example, if I click on custom and I'm clicking on sample, and here method it is asking IP or DNS or whatever. Let me click on main index and I want to review it. So TCP 10001 and I'm submitting it. So you can start searching for the data. So as of now, I did not configure anything, so definitely I'll not get any data. So this port has to be configured from application side and servers has to be connected, and you need to create your inputs.configuration file in order to get the data to Splunk. So whatever you are creating, that will be getting added as inputs.configuration file. And if you see, a bunch of network devices are sending syslog reports. So for example, you are, as I told you earlier, if you are having many application servers and all the application servers are reporting to some port. So in this case, what I want only few inputs to be selected. I don't want all the inputs. Then in that case, you can definitely write accept from, and you can define the IP addresses or DNS, whatever you want. And you can also add the wildcard entry or not symbol. So wildcard entry, it will take all the servers related to that specific DNS or IP addresses which you are defining. Otherwise, not symbol, you can define where you'll discard. You don't want to get the data. And these are the network input queues. So you are seeing memory queue here, persistent queue, and forward output queue. You are having different queues here. So the data usually coming from forwarder, and from the forwarder, how the data will flow. The data will come into different parsing queues, and from that parsing queues, it goes into indexing queues, and then it comes to Splunk. So here, if you see, queues provide flow control. So applies to TCP, UDP or scripted input, whatever the inputs you are creating, works as a input chain, entire input chain. So first one gets blocked and then it is filling up before it is moving to other queues. So every queue it passes. So whatever the data we are getting, every queue it is passing and it is making sure you are getting the data in the indexer. And persistent queue is nothing but it is preserved. So even if the indexer goes down, so the data will be stored in the persistent queue, and when the indexer comes up, then the data from the persistent queue is immediately available in Splunk. So there will not be any data loss. So it is also not a solution for input failure, but it preserves. When the indexer is getting restarted or when it is going down, it preserves the data. memory queue. If you see here, queue size attribute sets the queue size for input data in KB, MB or GB. Usually will not increase it because it consumes more memory and more resources on Splunk server. So default is 500 KB. But if you feel like if there is any data loss due to this queue or the queues are becoming full, that you can verify it in DMC monitoring console. You can verify if the queues are working properly or not. That you can verify, and you can see whether if queues are becoming full, then in that case you can increase the queue size, but mostly it is default to 500 KB. Useful if the indexer cannot always receive the data as fast as forwarder is acquiring it, independent of the forwarder's maximum queue size attribute. So in each and every server size you can define it. If you don't want, you can change it. Otherwise it is 500 KB. Persistent queue, it provides file system buffering of data. So for buffering purposes, we are using this adds additional buffer space after memory buffer. You set this queue size first. So set the queue size and then set this persistent queue size. Persistent queue is written to disk on the forwarder. So you can directly define it on forwarder. So where it is written, var run Splunk. So useful for it. So mostly we will use this persistent queue size only in the case of high volume data. So it cannot be used for each and everything. As I told, it will be consuming more memory and more resources. And special handling and best practices. So UDP, Splunk merges the UDP data until it finds a timestamp by default, can override during the parsing phase. So UDP, basically we don't use UDP because of security issues, and you'll go with the TCP only always in Splunk. So that thing you have to remember. Best practices, syslogs and data to syslog collector. So syslog collector is nothing but are heavy forwarders that writes into directory structure. So on the heavy forwarders, what they'll do, they'll add some direct. So whatever the data is coming to the specific port from the application side, the data will be saved on this specific directory folder. So from this directory, what you have to do, you need to make sure you are creating inputs.configuration file, and you are adding this path. Whatever the path you are seeing, that path should be added as monitoring path on inputs.configuration file, and then get the data to Splunk. So monitor the source type directory and use host underscore segment. You might need to break out the source types with custom transforms. You can also use the props and transforms, and if you don't want any particular data, you can use the transforms to filter out the events. SNMP trams, write the trams to a file and use a monitor input. So you are having some basic links, you can go into that, and along with the TCP UDP, how you are getting the data. In the same way, you can also define this scripted inputs. So basically for TCP UDP or for defining universal forwarder, you are defining some UDP or it can be TCP. But when the data is already coming on some specific path, then in this case, what you are defining monitor path. So when you are seeing the scripted inputs, what you have to define, you have to define a script path. So wherever you are defining the script. So why we are using this script in Splunk? So what is the purpose of using this scripted inputs? So usually, okay, now here comes the question. Why you are using TCP and UDP when you are already having universal forwarder in place? So there are different ways in Splunk. For example, this application server. So as I told, on the application server, we are configuring the RSys log by seeing forwarder details and some port details you are giving. But we are also having universal forwarder where we are getting the data easily on Splunk by installing universal forwarder. So when we are having this universal forwarder, why people are using this port and forwarder endpoints? So why we are using means on the legacy servers. So we are having some servers where they are very sensitive servers. So you cannot install any forwarder or any agents on their servers. So in that case, what is happening? If you install something on their servers, on their sensitive servers, their server may go down. So in this case, what they'll prefer, they'll not prefer to install any agents on their servers. So that is the reason they are using this rsyslog configuration. Now with this rsyslog configuration, they are just routing the data to forwarder along with the port details. They are directly routing the data. So this is done. We are getting the data, we are forwarding it, and we are seeing the data on some particular index in Splunk. Then how about scripted inputs? Why we are using scripted inputs? So for scripted inputs also, let me take the example of Book My Show. So Book My Show, what we are doing, we are seeing the movies, not seeing the movies, but we are booking the tickets for the movies. So we will see when the movie get released, we will book the tickets and we'll go and watch that movie. So now I want the book my show details, all the related details to be getting into Splunk. So how many tickets were sold out, and how many users are presently using book my show, and how many users are booking the tickets directly through some vouchers, or directly through some other websites like Paytm or Google Pay, anything. So like that I want to know the details of each and everything. So in this case I want the data from book my show application or book my show to Splunk direct. In this case I cannot install anything on the book my show, and I cannot add some forwarded details. I can add some forwarded details and route each and everything, but whatever I'm seeing in the UI of the book my show, everything should be getting as logs on their application server. So in this case it is little difficult. So what I can do, I can go for scripted inputs. Now what I'll do, I'll write some script. How I'll write the script, I'll write the script in such a way that I can access the book my show and I can get the information how many tickets were sold out. So that number I can take it and how many users are presently using that book my show. I can take all those details only when application owner is giving permission to read their data. So in this case, our Splunk should have some read permissions to read the data of book my show. So scripted inputs also the same way. Whenever application users are providing some read permissions to our Splunk, we can easily write the script and we can get the data from the application. So this is why we are going and using this scripted inputs, and not only this, through REST APIs also. So we are having another thing which is nothing but REST API. REST API also the same way. Application team will now provide username and password. So based upon that we are getting the data and we are seeing that in the Splunk. But before that you need to get some details of the application like read permissions, or user has to provide some user ID or password, or they have to provide some API key to access their application. So like that there are different ways to access the data. Now scripted inputs. Splunk can execute scheduled scripts. So it can execute scheduled scripts and index the generated output. Commonly it is used to collect diagnostic data from OS commands like topnet, statvm, statps, etc. You can use any commands and you can try to get the data. Many Splunk applications, so whatever the applications, if you go into splunkbase.com, so there we are having many applications. So most of the applications, I can say most of the applications are using shell script or Python. Mostly they will be using Python. So you can view them in the bin directory and you can see what type of code they are using to show us visualization, or to show some script running behind and getting the data. So like that you are having many things. Also good for gathering any transient data that cannot be collected with monitor or network inputs. So which cannot be collected, as I told book my show. So that cannot be collected through such a network inputs or by writing monitor path and all. So in that case, you can use this scripted inputs. APIs, message queues, web services, or any other custom transactions. Splunk can run shell scripts on Nix, Batch or PowerShell on Windows, Python on any platform. So like that you are having different scripts that can be run in Splunk. And if you see here, this is the inputs.configuration file. So initially what you have to do, you have to go into bin directory and you have to define the script. So after defining the script, not only opt Splunk bin directory, you can go into etc system bin directory, or you can create any application in etc, and there you can add the bin directory and you can add the script. Once if you create the script, you have to make sure you are getting the valid output. After getting the valid output, you need to create this inputs. So write inputs.configuration file and make sure you are writing the path of the script where you have actually defined. So write the path of the script, host, source type, and interval. Interval is nothing but at what time you want to run the script. Is it for every 60 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes? Whatever the time you want to run the script, that thing you can run it. But whatever the interval you are writing, you should make sure you are writing in cron schedule. And pass auth. What is this pass auth? Pass auth to run the script as a specified OS user. So Splunk passes the auth token via std in to the script. So like that, you are having so even if you don't write this pass auth also, that is not an issue. You can get the results. So based upon the script, whatever the script you are writing, you have to make sure you are writing it properly. And here if you see defining the scripted input, how do you define? As I told you, write or obtain the script, take the script, always test the script. So whenever you want add it in some application, you have to make sure you are running the script and you are getting the exact results before going into production. So first what you'll be having, you'll have some dev test servers. So copy the script and make sure you are getting the results, and copy the script where, in which location, in bin directory you have to run the script, and after getting the proper results, then you have to push this to production. So unless, first you have to make sure you are running and executing everything on your dev server only. Once it is successfully created or added, only you have to move into production. To deploy remote scripted via Splunk web, copy the verified script to the appropriate directory first, configure the scripted inputs. So you can configure the scripted inputs either web UI or from the backend also you can create it. That is not an issue. So from the dev environment, like a test or dev environment, whichever you are using, you can add the script from the backend, and you can make sure you are adding the inputs from the UI. So once you have added the input from the UI, what you can do, you can make sure you are copying the inputs and adding it in the backend in the production. So that is not an issue. So whatever you are creating from the UI, definitely it gets added as some configuration file in the backend. So that thing also I'll verify while we are creating the scripted inputs. In our lab session we are having it. So if you see here, we are having the scripted inputs. So let me open settings, data inputs, go into data inputs. So if you see here, we are having scripts. Go into scripts. So these are the default scripts based upon the application which I have installed on my laptop. So if you see here, for example, if we consider one of the script, it is showing .sh, and it is from the application Splunk TNX. So some Windows application, it is already in disabled. So if you want to enable, you can enable it. So for example, let me take the delete schedule underscore delete.py. This is some Python script which is already present in Splunk underscore instrumentation, and it is running for every minute. So go into new local script. So whenever you are adding the script, you can see the path. So what all the scripts are already present, it is showing. So whenever I am adding my own script, it will definitely show here, and I'll select that. Whatever the command, if you want to add, you can add it, and in seconds or in cron, if you want to add it in cron, you can add it. Otherwise you can add it in seconds for every 60 seconds or something like that, and you should go next. So for example, I'll try to select one of the sample one, and I'll try to go next. So in the next, what it is trying to show, it is trying to show some source type, or whatever the source type you want, custom source type, you can add it. Otherwise, if you are already having some application where you have already created some script, so that application you can select it, so that it will be easy to you to know that only single application is having whatever the script you are writing, and whatever the source type, or whatever the input you are trying to create. Here whatever the scripted input you are going to create, that will be saved on this specific folder. So that thing you can make sure. And the source type, for the source type also you can make sure you are adding it in the same folder. And index, whatever the index you want, you can create it, and you can review and search for the data. So like this we are going to create a scripted inputs in Splunk. So if you see interval, this is the older version, little older version where you are seeing it, but everything seems to be same. But here on the left side, if you see this interval, source name, override, source type, so like that you are having some settings. So based upon these settings, you can add the scripted inputs. But whenever you are trying to add any scripted inputs, you make sure you are running the scripted inputs and getting the results. So today we are going to see a lab exercise for create scripted inputs and get the data in Splunk, and how to create the scripted inputs, that we are going to see. And the next thing is create TCP and verify inputs in the backend. So for TCP, we will need to configure different syslog servers, so that we are not going to do it, but we will try to create inputs and see how the configurations will be present in the backend. And for scripted inputs also, what we'll do means we will add some script, not really script the output. So for the script, when we run the script, we are getting some output. So we will try to create such things using curl command, and we'll try to add that curl command in the script and get the results. That one we will see it now. So for this, what I have did means I have already created some Linux instance in my AWS. So from this AWS, what I'll do means I'll write Splunk here. So this is the AWS which I have directly installed from Amazon Marketplace. So this we have already seen in our earlier classes. Now what I'll try to do means I'll try to open Splunk. So for opening Splunk, we will give 8000 here, as I have already logged in. So it is directly showing without asking any username and password. So I'll try to verify index is equal to underscore internal logs, because these are real time and the system generated logs. So definitely I'll get the internal logs. So I'm getting some internal logs. So here what I'll do means I'll try to run a curl command. So for this one, I'll try to open SSH and try to give some ppk, open it, and my login will be, let me increase the font EC2. So change settings, I'll try to increase the font, increase some 14. So now I'll go into some bin directory. You can go into either opt splunk bin, or you can go into opt splunk etc apps bin. So what I'll try to do means sudo su-splunk. So I'm trying to log in with Splunk user itself. I don't want to go into root. So you go into opt splunk. We are also having bin directory. Either you can go into bin directory and create scripts, but as a best practice, always go into etc apps and create the script. So for that purpose, what I'll try to do means first I'll go into bin directory. Anywhere you can go, I'll try to run some curl command related to this one. So what would be the curl command? My curl command I'll try to run using my Splunk server, and I'll try to get the internal logs. So you can get it any logs, not only Splunk related. So usually we will write the script in such a way that we are going to get the application logs from the end user. That means we will be having access to their server data, and we are going to get that data and we are storing it. Now I'll write curl -new user. So that should be my admin colon, and Splunk, what is the password? When you are trying to create any instance with AWS Marketplace, your password would be this one. Now I'm trying to give the details of my Splunk server itself, this one. So always you need to give management port. So whenever you are trying to run something, always give :8089. And what is this? This is HTTPS. You should always run the commands. And initially, before running with the application servers, you have to make sure whether your server is connecting to their server or not. Sometimes there will be firewall issues, so that thing you have to make sure you are clearing all the firewall issues. So to show you how to create some scripted inputs, I am trying to create my own search thing. Search, I'll write jobs. I'm trying to export, write -d, and search query you have to write. So how you are trying to search? Search is equal to search. Now index is equal to underscore internal you are running. So internal logs are more. So if I run index is equal to underscore internal, you'll get the results continuously. So in order to skip it, I'll write earliest and latest. So it will take last 5 minutes data only, and then last 5 minutes to now. And then what we are trying to do, we are trying to export the results in output mode JSON. See, you are getting the results. So you are stopping it, Control C, I have stopped. So this is the result which we are getting with this query. So now what I can do means, now I'll go into etc apps, cd etc apps, and I'll try to select search application. In this search application, I'll go into bin directory. Always remember your script has to be in bin directory itself. Now in the bin directory, you can create any script. I'm trying to create .sh. So I'll write mindmajix.sh. Now just I'm trying to add this one, and I'm saving it. Now try to see whether you are getting the results for this one or not. So it is not able to select it. So what will be the case? So if you see, it is showing read, write, read, only read permissions. So I want to give read, write permissions to all the groups. So I'll write chmod 777 Mindmajix. Now when I try to run it, it is running properly. Otherwise you will not get the results. So you have to make sure you are running, or whatever you are writing the script, that should be having permissions to Splunk. Read, write, execute permissions should be present. So in this way, what I have did, I have created some mindmajix.sh and I have added some script. This is done. Now I want to get the data in Splunk. How do you get the data in Splunk? As we have discussed, go into data inputs. Here you are having scripts. Click on the scripts and new local script. If you go into this new local script, it is asking path. Where did we create it? We have created in etc apps search bin directory. Now in the bin directory, we are having many scripts. These are all Python scripts. So I'll try to select Mindmajix. Now here in this Mindmajix, you can either write the expressions in cron schedule, so whenever you want to run it, but we will run it in seconds itself, 60 seconds. Next, source type, whatever the source type you want. So I'll try to select some sample source type. I don't have anything specifically, but I'll try to select sample. So if you want anything, you can create the props.configuration file based upon the results which you are getting. Host field value, if you want to change it, you can change it. And my index, I'll try to select sample, review it. So before going and searching, I'll try to show whether we are having any data on sample or not. So go into search. Now I'll try to run index is equal to sample, and I'll try to run for all time. So I don't have any data. Now let me submit it and start searching. So whenever you are start searching, you can able to see the data. Index is equal to sample. Now you see all the data which I have extracted, or which is running here, getting it from Mindmajix source. If you want to replace the source, you can do it, but as of now it is showing etc app search bin mindmajix.sh. So like this you can get the results in Splunk, and if you see, the results are extracting by default. Some of the fields are extracting by default, and this is the JSON. And if you want to see the logs in raw format, you can see this. This is what we are getting in Splunk. I hope you understood this. So next one is create TCP and verify the inputs in backend. So we have to create some TCP inputs. So go into data inputs, go into TCP, new local TCP. Now give the port 514 only. I'll give sample. Try to select some sample. Now this time what I'll try to do, I'll try to select main index. Review, submit. 514 is not applicable. So it is showing 514, the default one. It is not applicable here. So let me give some 9997 port. Okay, what is happening means I need to define this port. Whenever I'm trying to create any Linux services from Amazon, I need to add some ports. So whenever I am trying to add the ports for this specific server, I did not add any ports. So maybe that is the reason it is not trying to select. But this is the default one, which it is not taking. So I'll try to give the next one. And if it is not working, okay, so it is working. So 514 and 9997, these are the default ports. Splunk is unable to take it, but I have changed the port to 1001, so it is taking. So you make sure whenever you are trying to give any new port and try to test, you make sure you are adding that port details in this AWS. And now what we need to do, we need to verify where this input was created. So go into data inputs. So I'll click on it. So it is showing status enabled, and my source type is sample, and my port is 1001. So I need to verify where is my 1001 port defined. What is the exact input? Definitely whenever or whatever you are creating, that will be stored as inputs. So I'll go into bin directory and I'll try to run the btool command. So splunk btool, and what is the file name? It should be inputs list. I want to list the file debug. So inputs.configuration file. So for getting the inputs.configuration file, I'm trying to use the btool, and I'm trying to figure out where the exact location is. If I want to get another, for example, props configuration file, I'll try to write props and I'll list and debug. And if I write it or run like this, I'll get many results, but I'm concerned only with 1001 port. So grep, I'll use it, and I'll try to write 1001 port. So if you see here, it is showing a TCP 1001, but where is the exact location? It is showing in search local only. So go into this. So here I'll try to open inputs. So Earlier, whatever we have created Mindmajix one, it is showing here mindmajix.sh, etc apps mindmajix.sh, and whatever we have created as TCP, it is showing here. So this is how you need to verify. And connection underscore host we have selected as DNS, so it is showing DNS, and index as main, source type as sample. Earlier one we have given index sample and interval 60 seconds and source type sample. This is how you'll need to verify. Now next one is interview questions. So what are network inputs in Splunk and how do you deploy them? So when compared to universal forwarder or other data integration mechanisms, we are having network inputs in Splunk. So that means we are, as we have discussed in our last class, we are making use of port and we are getting the data in Splunk. So application team will be configuring endpoint and you port details of Splunk, and they'll configure it in rsyslog. And once they configure it in rsyslog, we can able to see their server connecting to our server, and whatever the listeners we have added from there, we can able to see the data of their application server. And how do you deploy them? You can deploy it either via two ways. One is you can create inputs.configuration from backend. Otherwise, you can create it via web. So you have to make sure whatever you are defining, it is correct and getting the results properly, and also make sure there is no firewalls. How do you configure scripted inputs in Splunk? So first thing, before going to scripted inputs, you have to make sure we are connecting to the application server, and whatever the script we are writing, it is executing properly. Once it is executing properly, you make sure you are giving permissions read write execute to Splunk in order to execute the script. And how do you configure scripted inputs? As I have shown, it will be starting with the script, and it will show the where the exact location of script, and that script will be added as monitoring path. So instead of monitor, you'll be writing script along with path and source type and index. What is the difference between UDP and TCP? So basically, TCP is connection oriented protocol and UDP is connection less oriented. But in Splunk, we are going to use more TCP but not UDP. TCP is more secure when compared to UDP, and also as TCP is connection oriented, there will not be much data loss when compared to UDP. As UDP is connection less oriented, there might be chances. But also one thing, TCP is slower when compared to UDP. UDP is faster and efficient, but TCP is heavyweight as compared to UDP. This thing you'll need to know. And there are chances like people will be asking whenever you are talking about network inputs, either TCP or UDP, there might be chances people may ask what is the difference between TCP and UDP. So in this case, you will need to know about this TCP and UDP as well. And how do you define schedule in scripted inputs? You can schedule either defining or either writing the interval in seconds, or you need to know about cron schedule. What is this cron schedule? So cron schedule, how you can learn that is, for example, you are having cron tab group. So in this cron tab group, if you see this 5 4, so first one will be defining as minute, second one hour, day, month, day. So star means it will show every day, every month, and every day in a week. And 5 4, first one will define minute, second one. So whenever you want to modify this anything, you can do it. So at 4 o'clock it will run. So next schedule also you can verify. So 14th 4 o'clock, 15th 4 o'clock. So every day at 4 o'clock it is going to run. So you can apply your own schedule and you can verify how it is running, and how you can learn about this cron schedules. So basically we are going to define with either cron schedules